All right, everybody, welcome to another BYOG party, and I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for all of them, but especially this one. One's been, geez, maybe I said months in my email today, but it might even be a year in the making since the first time Patrick and I talked, and was a fellow BYOGer introduced me to Patrick and told me, and I was especially interested in this because he told me how he basically healed his spine, or a big part of healing his spine and the disc and rehydrating the disc was getting the right water, getting structured water, and how that was able to help him. And I said, that'd be awesome. Who do you know, or who told you about this, and who went over this with you? And he introduced me to Patrick, and I'm excited to have him here because I know I have a lot of questions rolling around in my head. And if you guys, who are on live have any questions, you can put them in the chat as we get talking. Other questions might come up. And then if you're watching the recording, the replay, just put them in the comments down below, and again, we read the comments, right? I read the comments, so we'll be able to answer those. Okay. But I just want to get going with this because I want Patrick just to go over. He's got an interesting backstory of like where he started and why he's into water right now and what it can do for us. But then we'll get into the nitty gritty, like simple questions, but it's a one question, one line sentence, but I know it's not as just easy and simple as like a 2-minute answer. It might be going deep into that, like just essentially like what structured water is. Like that's what I want to find out is it, because we hear it all the time, but what the heck does that actually mean? So Patrick, with that, say hi to everybody, and everybody say hi to Patrick.
Hey Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a break for me from having any interviews because I didn't have any product. I've been sold out for so long that I just stopped doing any kind of appearances because people would just order and then get frustrated, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to be coming back on with you. I actually picked up a copy of my own book this morning and went back and like looked at the last dozen years that I've lived. And I'm just so excited to be here and have the chance to share with you and your audience and to like reconnect with this part of myself from a whole new place, a new place of wisdom and awareness. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And, that's from the first time we talked and how you just explained in simple terms water. I was like, this is what this group is all about, or these parties essentially are all about, is I want simple, healthy living practices that people can do to keep them healthy and active and pain-free and drugless for their entire life. And water is at the base level of what that is, air and water, right? So we need to know how to get the healthiest water in us to make sure it's having the effect that we want it to, which is to keep us pain-free, healthy, active, mobile, flexible, and all that good stuff. So let's get into that right now, which, again, where do you want to start, Patrick? I'll leave it up to
I
you.
know exactly where I want to start. I want to start by telling people how much pain I've lived in. Like, I'm 54 and I just saw my 4 kids for the first time in 5 years, all in the same location. Because we all moved. We're spread from Oahu to Amsterdam now, and there were some graduations that brought us together on the East Coast. And across all 4 of my kids, when I've had experiences with them recently, they say things like, "Dad, don't ride the waves in the ocean too much. Like, I don't want you to get sore. I don't want you to be hurt and recovering for 3 or 4 days," because literally their whole childhood, that's all they knew. They only knew me to be that way. And since about 3 years ago, when I got rid of Lyme disease, I started like when the bugs aren't in the body, then the body can be worked on and actually change. So I'm the healthiest and most fit at 54 that I've been in a really long time. So, back to the moment where I chose a different path. I was 30. I was a very successful financial advisor, and I was destroyed inside. I was ripped apart by the corporate life, the addiction to money, the competition, all of that. And I went to the doctor and I was like, I'm falling apart over here. And she said, oh, no problem. You have irritable bowel syndrome. Just take this pill every day for the rest of your life and you'll be fine. And my response was, you're fired. And I got up and walked out. And she was right. I did have irritable bowel syndrome, and she knew it that day and I didn't. But regardless of her being right, I wasn't going to accept that as my answer. And so I spent the next 8 years going to every alternative health provider who I thought could help me on the South Shore of Boston, and just clawing my way to healing from irritable bowel syndrome. My body eventually just let those symptoms go. I went all the way from like essentially a year of diarrhea, like straight, to I ate a whole pepperoni pizza and a 6-pack of beer by myself and just was fine, like I could digest it. So that's a pretty full recovery, right? So, you know, we each have a symphony in us, as far as I can tell, from our creator. We're here to do something. And my path was to align with the natural. It was to figure out the essentials underneath what generates health. And so as a part of that, my journey has included irritable bowel and Lyme, which were necessary to torment me in a way to drive me deeper, 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 deeper. And what I found out when I go deeper, 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 is that the essence of health and well-being, it's already given to us by this earth and by our creator. And all we have to do is forget and unwind and come down to it. So water became one of the absolutely most essential pieces. Like if I don't get that right, how can I expect this body to operate properly? So let's start right there. Like that's the beginning of the game. So it doesn't matter what somebody's suffering with. If they're suffering and that pain is causing them to investigate and research and find change, if you don't get the water piece right, how can you expect to get anything else right?
Yeah, I love that. Just how you describe, we have this power inside of us. You know, it's innate. You know, being in the chiropractic field, that's one of the first things we learned day one in chiropractic colleges. There's an innate inside of us that knows how to heal, but what we're doing on a daily basis, pretty much, or I should generalize, but what most people do is they're doing things that interfere with that ability to heal itself. And like you said, water is the base level of that. And it does still surprise me when I have patients or other people say that they don't drink water, they can't drink water, or, you know, they have like 4 ounces a day, or, you know, is coffee included? Because then that would increase, you know, all these things that we want to be true, but it's not, you know, that we need this safe water. We need this clean water. And that's what you're going to help us do today, is find out what is clean, what is safe, how can we optimize and maximize the water that we're drinking, and how do we do that?
Yeah, well, I think that word safe is really essential, because if you look at the water conversation globally and you look at, like I'm a very hands-on CEO. The phone rings, I love to pick it up and learn. And what I insist upon is whatever my company offers, it has to cause people in their lives to get better. If their life isn't improved, my company is worthless. That's my measurement for whether I'm doing good in the world. And what I learned when I first picked up the phone, like 2013 was the first time I got interviewed. And I like got a phone call from Ghana, and I got a phone call from Australia, and I got plenty from the US and Canada. So change the dialect and the intonations and stuff. They all had the same fears. They were all afraid of what was in their water, and they wanted to know how to make it safe. And so there's a conversation about fear and safety, and that whole conversation is crap, because it's designed to cause people globally to fear their water. Gosh, amazing, right? Like that a whole conversation can be co-opted like that. So let's cut right underneath it. This is a vibration and frequency-based universe. The energetics are what determine what happens in the physical world. And so I've been fortunate enough in the last year to move to Maui. I live in Hawaii now, and I can any day hop in the car and go to one of the most beautiful waterfalls in the world. And when you go into a waterfall, what you feel is soft water. You feel drawn to it, and you don't know why, but you're just happy around it. And so in my discoveries of coming to Maui and leaving Maui, I chase waterfalls all over the mainland too. Like, I just love waterfalls. What I found is that there's a place called the Iao Valley on Maui. I can't take a bad mood into the Iao Valley and bring it back out. I can't. Like, I've gone in there like jet lagged and sour, and I just go wash in the water, and I restore 100% of the time. And so the vibration and frequency is there. It's given by this earth. And what we do, instead of letting water tumble and frolic and play like in a waterfall, we control it and put it through long straight pipes, and we put toxins in it and we push it out underground through these pipes, and then we have it come out the faucet, and people smell chlorine and they go, oh, yuck, and they don't like it. That's the way we're handling it culturally. Where water's nature is, if you look at waves, you go to the ocean's edge or you go to a waterfall, water's nature is to roll and frolic and move. That's what causes it to clean itself. So I would suggest that we reframe the conversation about safety. The first question is about the energetics of your water. Because if you're not choosing the energetics of water, they're being chosen for you. The second question is about purity. And the third question is about mineral content. 1, 2, 3. So if every listener can stand on my shoulders and go forward for themselves, let me suggest framing the conversation of listen to the energetics first, the physics of the water, the structuring of the water. Then purity's next, and it's actually optional, and we'll get deep into that. And then third is, what do you believe about minerals, and do that. All right, so you want to focus us with another question? You want me to just jump right into what structured water is? Because
that was my next question. That was where we're going to go. So go for it.
All right, so every industry tries to define themselves and make themselves seem special, right? That's what we do. Like, we're so cool. You need to spend a lot of money with us. And I can relate to that because when I went through a career change, I had 18 years as a financial advisor, and then I was moving to water. And my vision was that I would sell a lot of water filters while I was on a windsurfing board, right? That was the plan. Like, the cash register rings and I say it. And every time I tried to sell filters, it wouldn't work. Like, life would just go like that every time I'd get involved with filters, and I didn't understand it. And then structured water came along, and it offers a device that has no replacement parts and no maintenance. So there's no recurring revenue from the customer. And I was a businessman, a finance guy. I'm like, what kind of business is that? And so I pulled away from it when I first learned about it. In fact, I ran away from it for like 6 months. It's like, I don't want anything to do with this. This would be an awful business. And then life kept closing doors and opening doors. And the closed doors were with the filters, and the open doors were with the structured water. And finally I was like, okay, like, I'll give this a try. And so, what I learned is that there's an industry that calls itself the structured water industry, but actually all water is structured. There's no such thing as unstructured water. So the question is your water structured toward, let's say, this way points toward harmony, or this way points toward chaos? So a 5G antenna is a structuring device. It discombobulates water. It points us toward chaos. If you're not taking care of the energetics of your water and helping water strengthen itself, you're getting that. If you put water in a microwave, it blows water molecules up. It makes the energetics of things non-usable for the human body by destroying water structure. It's not that water structure goes away, it's just it becomes so chaotic that it's destroyed. If you go toward nature, then you move toward harmony. So in that dialogue, I realized, because as I started to become successful, everybody who offers a structuring technology approached me and said, I want you to sell my technology. And I was like, well, teach me about it. And one of the first things I learned was that if a structuring technology comes with a plug, I'm out. Because a plug means that the energetics are coming from the chaos side. I don't want anything to do with that. So then what's on the other side? It's not like we get taught this in school. So a vortex spin is probably best recognized by most people in a tornado. So if you watch a tornado touch the earth, it spins infinitely fast, and then it touches, and whatever it touches, it pulls up and it transforms that matter. So let's just be present with that for a second. Infinite fast spin transforming matter. I'm going to take a sip of water here, 1 second. So as I thought about that, I lived at the ocean's edge. And I started to see the vortexes in the waves. And then I started to see if I walked in the water, vortexes spun off my legs. And then I started to see that in like a little area around me, there were an infinite number of infinitely fast moving vortexes. So that means matter is being transformed right there, and I'm in the presence of the infinite. We definitely don't have enough of that in this life, right? We have so many man-made technologies that are structuring us all the time, just by living in a home. Like, you're not going to get away from it. So the vortex is at the heart of the two things that I found are really, really essential for how I treat my water. I need a vortex spin. I need it to move infinitely fast so that whatever that miracle is that happens inside a water molecule is present. And then the second thing that I learned about is sacred geometry. And sacred geometry can be thought of as a syntax or an alphabet that creation uses to create. So when trees grow, they don't just send limbs here and there, they follow patterns, right? If you picture pine trees that are Christmas trees, or different types of trees, they have a ratio, just like there's a ratio to the size of my fingers, to the size of my arm, to the size of my body. Like, it's all sacred geometry. We don't just show up, we unfold mathematically. And so back in the time when I was learning this, I had like a lecture on it that I attended one night. And then as I was waking up the next morning, that dream to awake state, I saw numbers become shapes, become matter. I was like, oh, that's how it works. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't say like I can fully dialogue in that. I just was shown, like, this is how it works. And it made complete sense to me. So sacred geometry, or the shapes that are in your water, are really important. So when you and I met, we were still making these devices by hand. And I told you, I don't have any supply. And every month they'd be like, no, I need another month. No, I need another month. And along the way, we've shifted to a manufacturing line, which is running now. It's still early, so we're not at full capacity yet. But this is one of our portable devices called an Aqua Energizer. And it's the only certified structured water device in the world. And inside, you see that screen? So that's an octagon. So that is sacred geometry. So in the past, what we did was we soldered all the crystals in place. And what we did was we got rid of 95% of the solder and put a screen in that increases the sacred geometry and decreases the materials we don't want. And it turned, we had a team of 6 sensitives who measured every step along the way as we've been changing the device from handmade to manufactured, because we wanted to make sure that vibration and frequency was always getting better. And what we found is that one change of putting that screen in there was the single most impactful energetic that we had in the whole process of moving it. So that sacred geometry piece is the essence of it. So what I'm looking to do when I treat water is structure it with the infinite, sacred geometry and vortexing. and minimize the impact of the man-made pieces. Does that clarify for you what structured water is?
Yes, I mean, I like, and that was one of the eye-opening things when, again, when we talked last year was all water is structured water. It's just a matter of, okay, is it the chaos like you mentioned, or is it in tune essentially with nature? Like it's a spectrum. It's a line of, okay, it's not just structured water or not structured, but where does it fall in that continuum? So I mean that makes sense to me. If anybody else has any questions, go ahead, put them in the chat, because again, we're going to keep going, and as we go, I'm sure Patrick will answer the questions that, or he might or might not answer the question. So make sure you ask it if you're wondering, because there are so many different quote types of water, right? Like purified and alkaline. And now I see all this info about hydrogen water. And I, so I don't know if you can go into that, like what the difference is between all these different types of water we see. We go on a trip and we go in the convenience store and all the bottled water there, and it's purified or it's, propel, whatever. So yeah, please go into that.
Yeah, so like with so many conversations in this world, this one has been hijacked by industry. It's all about selling billions of dollars worth of products. It's not about solving problems for people. And I got to tell you, that like activates anger in me. Like that, I will climb a mountain to fix that. And so when you talk about like, can I distinguish between these? Almost every single one I've gone really, really deeply into because it was my own question. Like, why is that the solution for the world? And then I go try it out and then I feel let down and disappointed. And so I'm ready for all of these questions. And I can do a general and basic reframe to help people have some principles. So the first place to start is by going back to what's already been referenced, and I'll just keep doing this. You need to answer 3 questions for yourself, right? That's the new framework. So the old framework is, I fear what's in my water, how do I remove it? So if we look at that philosophically for a second, I believe that this is a universe of oneness. Whatever the creator is or wherever energy comes from, I think it all came from the same place. So if it all expanded from the same place, it's all part of the same thing. And I think that energy's desire is to love itself back into harmony. So philosophically, that's where I come at life from. So from there, how can I remove something from anything? I can concentrate, I can make something more dense here or less dense, but I can never remove anything from anything. So the chemistry conversation, how do I remove things? That's going to be the very thinking of it is already inside of enforcing separation and fear. So the physics conversation, the oneness conversation is how can I transform? So this is where we start to stretch people's capacity, right? Because they have a schooling and a life experience that says a whole lot of things. And when they hear something that resonates to the cells and the soul inside of them, they can feel this degree of alignment with it, but then the mind starts yipping and yapping about it. So that's going to happen here. So the first thing to realize is that it's the physics-based conversation that begins to answer the question. So if you don't take care of the energetics of the water, then you're never going to get the desire that you want, because if you don't have the creator's water breathing through and enlivening you, then you have a man-made solution. So when you look at the basics of most of those industries, one of my tests is if I took this water, say hydrogen water, and I gave it back to nature, what would nature do with it? And that's when you find out that hydrogen water is a chemistry-based changing water, man-made, with a whole industry wrapped around it. And some of my good friends swearing up and down, this is great stuff. This is great stuff. It's changed my life. Like there's always the testimonial and the person that benefited from it. And I would suggest that that water is a temporary, man-made, out of balance, not natural water. There's no hydrogen water spring on findaspring.com that I can drive to and roll in the waterfall and get that. That's not available. It's not nature's. So hydrogen water might be an awesome short-term fix for somebody, and they might get great benefits from it. Like I did 2 years on alkaline water, and that was right at the beginning of this career. And I was transitioning from being a really sick, unhealthy financial advisor to being this guy. It was a long transition. And in those 2 years, the alkaline water helped me. And so I sold Kangen machines, and I've always been super successful at selling. It's just my little boy just loves to meet new people and ask them if they want to get involved in whatever I'm inspired about. And just that's comfort for me. And so inside of alkaline water, I had an expectation, which is that I would sell 100 machines a month, and that would give me that windsurfing income, and it would be easy and it would be fun. I sold 11 in a year. I don't remember anything in my life that I've failed at selling, but 11 in a year, that was a failure. That was the first one. And then I went to a workshop with 11 people in the whole workshop. It was given by a friend. She brought her structured water device out at lunch, and 5 of the 11 people ordered devices from me. And I was like, wow, like 5 at lunch when not selling, or 11 in a year when busting my butt. This makes it pretty easy and obvious. So when we go to distinguish these different types of water, we want to look at where are they coming from? Are they coming from industry that is trying to perpetuate itself and earn a profit? Or are they coming from creator? So that's the starting point. And every question that people have, you guys, if you're watching this video later and you have a question and you put it underneath the video, I promise Dr. Ryan will track me down and I'll answer it. I love answering these questions because I've either already done it or you've got a new one for me. That's something for me to learn. So it's all good.
And and that's why I ask about like hydrogen water, is because that's the new thing that we're seeing. If you're watching this replay 2 years later, that might be another thing coming out, the new hot water topic or whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, again, being in the wellness industry and being in the health industry, we know all too well about how different therapies and different words get hijacked from big companies, or to exploit that and make money. And like you said, we have, again, mutual colleagues and friends that swear by the hydrogen water. And that's why, again, I wanted you on here to answer these questions. And I love how you put it into a framework. It's not just, this or that, but ask yourself these questions. What is the energy of it? And then you have to get the structure of it right. And then we can worry about and talk about the purity of it and then the mineralization of it. So yes, I'm glad you answered that.
Let me take that a little bit deeper for you. So if I'm driven by oneness in a way that like it's pretty uncommon. Like I go forth in the world and I see myself speak and I see where other people speak from, and I'm like, wow, like I just been given this dream times 100. And so from there, if I don't support the empowerment of each individual, I can't achieve whatever it is this symphony is that's coming through me. And so I've taken this examination, like almost everybody who's on a health journey has these questions about water. And they're kind of predictable, especially if you've put as much energy as I have into the path, you can see that people have these. So my goal when people engage with us with this is to empower them with principles so that they become their authority. I don't know what's true for anybody. I can just relay my life experience and the stories I've seen with other people and catalyze something within them. But really the alignment comes when somebody feels that truth and alignment within them. So for example, when I was selling the alkaline water machines, one of my closest friends bought one from me. And I just, about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, went back to Massachusetts for some graduations, and I stayed at their house for a little bit. And they're still running that machine on their counter. Mine's long since sold as a used machine. And and they also have a whole house structured water device. But the wife um, drinks the alkaline water on a daily basis, and the husband doesn't. Who am I to know? I don't know anything about anybody else. I could just give the principles. And I think that's what leaders do in this world is they inspire other people to be the fulfillment of themselves, and they trust that that's the only real solution that there is. So I hope that that helped.
Yeah, because it goes back to, I mean, we'll keep going here because I know there's, again, what are the practical tips that we'll get to practicality um, in, like with your device that you have, the Aqua Energizer, and your other devices that you have. And again, I'll provide links for those as well. Either as Patrick is going over things, I can put some in the chat, but then also I'll put it on the page where I repost this so people can look at that. And you'll see that, yeah, it's an investment that you make. But like even how you said a little bit a while ago was about like filters, and you have to keep getting filters and filters and filters for filtered water and in alkaline water and this and that and the different machines with, and this I want to get into this right now as I'm thinking about it, is like with your devices, with your Aqua Energizer, for example, what is the quote unquote upkeep for that? What is the, or is it just, okay, you get it and it works forever?
It's my favorite question.
All right.
Because when I started this company, the passion that was coming through me then as I could understand it wasn't so much about health as it was environmental. I wanted to get rid of plastic water bottles. Like for real, like maybe I could do something globally to cause people not to use them anymore. That was the passion. And so I became the head of the recycling committee in my town, and I got a whole vantage point on that. And the plastics that we throw into the environment all the time, they're saying microplastics are in water everywhere, right? And so we've really degraded our environment. And we in 1955, there's I think he was a scientist. His name was Victor Lebeau. Maybe he's an economist. He coined the concept of planned obsolescence. Right? We had this tremendous war economy that was now 10 years past, and we had, excuse me, built up all this industry, and they wanted to keep the industry going. And so the only way to keep the industry going was to make things that break and have to end up in the landfill. And then you could replace them with new things all the time. That's planned obsolescence, purely evil, right? And so structured water devices are like a throwback to the 1940s or further back. It's simply a device that is made with integrity to last indefinitely. There's no replacement part, there's no maintenance required. Sometimes people will use their structured water devices for liquids other than water. I don't do that, so I literally never clean my device. But if somebody puts red wine through it, it's you can take a cheap bottle of red wine and make it taste better. I don't drink, so I don't really know anything about that. But people say that. And the only thing I tell those people is if you put a liquid other than water through it, just rinse it right afterwards so it doesn't stick. Like, no big deal. And then the other thing is to let it dry thoroughly. So this is not the ideal storage position because some water can hold in the bottom, and that's not the best way to keep something dry. So you can put it like this in your dishwasher or beside your sink. Eventually we'll build a stand. We've been focusing on getting the manufacturing right first, and then we'll get a stand built. But you just hang it up so that both ends are clear and free, and let it dry itself. And so if you do that, you give it to your kids and the grandkids, and so on and so forth.
Wow. See that to me, it's like too good to be true, right? That's
Yeah.
what goes through my head. But when it's in line with nature, and again, you have developed this and looked at it like, okay, what's man-made and what is not. I love your question of, can I put this back into nature and then what happens, or is that what can be found? So that's a great way to think about it. Oh man, I
Yeah,
didn't. Sorry,
yeah,
everybody,
no,
for
that's great.
me being blown by this, but I didn't know that. I
Ever
thought it was
since,
like a filter
yeah,
thing too.
ever since I became the head of that recycling committee, I realized that when I come in the room, I pull up a chair for the earth too. So if nobody else is going to speak for her, then I will, because we don't live on the earth, we live in the earth. We are literally made up of her materials, and we will become her materials again when we're gone. And our energetics are directly tied to what is going on this planet. And when we pollute the planet to the degree that there's plastic in all water, guess what? There's plastic in us. And so the earth needs to be represented in every conversation. And, I don't know why our creator created me this way, but I can't sit quiet in a conversation without bringing that voice to the conversation. So you stack that up to a couple of careers and being a CEO, and it's like, I wouldn't be able to create a company that created something that sucked. Like that's just, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I'm not perfect, right? So, we sell a product called the best water pitcher ever, and it's made from plastic. And given the alternative, if somebody's going to buy a pitcher and they're going to filter water, because sometimes a filter is needed, then I at least want to offer best in class of that, even if it's not perfect. The ideal solution is that we structure with the vortex and sacred geometry, and that's enough. And if something else is needed, then I'm not holding a standard of there's only one way to do this. I'm trying to be adaptive enough to realize that it's you, the listener, it's your life that has to get better. And if you're not going to drink water without a filter, then got to help you have the best water filter ever, not one that stinks. So it's a combination. It's not perfectionism.
Mhm.
It's realism, I guess.
Okay. And we've talked about this. You mentioned it, like when we were talking about the safety. This is one of the first things that we talked about when they called you, and like, how do we make the water safe? And that points us to, like you mentioned, the plastics that get in water or these other contaminants. Can you talk a little bit about that and how they can be removed, or into these the water energizers? Does that remove it?
Yeah, perfect. Always back to the three questions. Okay. So number one, you choose your energetics intentionally. So if you're not choosing your energetics, they're being chosen for you. So right now, if you don't have a structured water device, you're getting 5G structure. So once you get comfortable with harmonizing your energetics, which can be your own prayer, right? That's the free version. It can be findaspring.com and going and hauling 5-gallon bottles out and getting water directly out of the earth. Like however you handle your energetics, you handle your energetics to the degree that's right for you. Then the next question is, what about purity? So most people say, how do I remove this from water? And I say, there's only two reasons to want a water filter. Smell and taste is the first reason, and then confidence is the second reason. So let's say you've been educated in this world and you are really strongly concerned about toxins. I would say that's a fear-based response to it, and that might be good to hear. Like it's okay to have a fear-based response. It's just good to know that you're having it so you can choose it instead of being a victim to it, right? So if you're like, God, I gotta remove things from my water. I'm just never gonna be safe if I don't remove things from my water. And that's running in your head. We're not trying to fight through that. We're not trying to say that's wrong. We'll just have you get a filter, right? So you either get a filter for confidence or for smell and taste. Because if water doesn't smell and taste good, you will never drink enough to be hydrated. So for me, I don't have the fear, right? So one of the things they say about water is that fluoride is put in there to cause a coating on the pineal gland, which stops us from having access to extrasensory perception. Now, I might be going a little further in concepts than anybody's heard about before, but I've been diving deep for a long time. And fluoridation was first used in Nazi Germany. And it was used to suppress, to dumb down, to dampen the population. People are more lifeless if their pineal gland is coated. And so I didn't know anything about that. I just knew prior to my structured water journey, there were people in my life who I would go to who had those kind of sensory perceptions, and I would go to them for guidance. And then I started to have an awakening of my own. And seems like that might be a place to spend a little bit of extra time. So I remember the specific moment when I realized it was starting to happen to me, which was that I was driving with my 4 kids from Massachusetts to Connecticut to get to my brother's rehearsal dinner. And because of some obligation we had back in Massachusetts, we were already going to be an hour late. And we were going down the Merritt Parkway, and we're in a part of Connecticut that we don't know well. It's not our home area. And I said, I'm getting off at the next exit. And the kid's like, what are you doing, Dad? Like, that's not the way to Chris's. And I was like, yeah, but I'm getting off. I was like, use your phones and figure out the traffic and tell me how to get over to I-95 because I'm getting off the Merritt. And they're like, okay, like whatever. And then we got off and we started crossing over to 95. And as we did, the kid said, if you went past that exit, there's a 4-mile backup. It's red, it's completely stopped. We would have missed the rehearsal dinner. And I just got off. And so I was shocked by that experience. I was like, where did that come from? And that's when I started to notice that there was a tingling that I would feel in the top part of my head when I would get this knowledge and take action on something that I didn't have the information. Fast forward 12 years later, and as we get on the call today, I can just feel that level of awakened energy right down my spine, up through my head, my whole crown chakra, like I live in it. And I know myself to be a much more energetic being than I've ever known myself before. So that fluoridation is designed to stop all that from becoming active in you. And it became active in me while structuring with a vortex and sacred geometry, but not filtering. I wasn't removing the fluoride because I have no fear of it. So I'm certain this being, this body, doesn't need a filter for fear, doesn't need it for confidence. But if the water doesn't smell and taste good, I need it. So once we decide we need a filter for, I think, only those 2 reasons, then I have a methodology which I'm happy to share. I call it the ABCs of water filtration. And the thing is, there's every kind of toxin, and you can get pulled into dialogue about this one, that one, this one, that one. You could get lost for days. I did get lost for days. I mean, imagine distilling this down and getting it to the ABC. So A, aesthetics. Aesthetics is what we smell and taste. So every water filter is an A filter. If even a Brita is an A filter. If it doesn't make the water smell better and taste better, it's not a filter. So aesthetics is A, that's first. Biologics is next, B. And biologics is like what you get if you go drink from a stream and there's cryptosporidium and giardia and living biological material in the water, and you drink that. If you're drinking non-fluoridated, non-city, non-treated water, you need a B filter, right? That's the next category. It's all the viruses and bacteria that are there. C is for chemicals. This is where industry gets us, right? This is all of the chemicals. And that has gone to include things like our pharmaceuticals and byproducts of water disinfection. So when they put the chlorine in, sometimes these days they have a hyper version of it and they get chloramines, and then you get all this stuff. Those are chemicals. So a good C filter will remove all the chemicals from water. And some C filters, like a Brita's position is, the EPA makes water totally safe. The drinking water standards are fine. Our responsibility to you, our brand promise, is to be an A filter, smell and taste. We don't have to do anything with C because C is not dangerous to you, right? Which is amazing. Like, how does this get to be the dominant water pitcher in the world when they acknowledge that the water that's coming out of the water supply is safe? Doesn't make any sense. So you can take matters into your own hand and get a C filter that's actually really good at removing a ton of different chemicals. And you'll never find one that's been tested on everything, because there's constantly new toxins being created in the environment and a new fear buzzword about what to be afraid of in your water. So the best is filters that do all the different categories really effectively, and then you just trust a little at the end. And you say, well, if it does all these other things, it's because of the type of filtration it is. It's not because it's been tested on everyone. That can save people a lot of heartache. You're not going to find perfect down that road. And then D is dissolved solids. And that's the metals. That's the lead. That's the heavy metals that get in from our pipes and that kind of stuff. And then after A, B, C, D, I came over the coming years to understand E was for energetics. And that's how I tied the physics back into it. And then eventually I added R, which is radiation. Because that pitcher that I mentioned, the best water pitcher ever, it's actually been laboratory tested to remove the radiation from Fukushima from water. And so when I created that brand, is the best water pitcher ever. And when you can remove things or reduce to a substantial percentage at least, things like the chloramines, but also the fluorides and the radiation, now you're talking about superior removal. So what you do when you are faced with this question, like what's going to create safe water for me, is you look at your values and beliefs. And if you align right away and say, everything is energy, there's no toxin that can hurt me, then you only need water for confidence or smell or taste. So you would only need an aesthetics filter. If you need more, or let's just say you have the budget, you don't even need it. You just have the budget. You're like, I'll feel better if the toxins are removed. Then you get a good A, C, D filter. Rarely do people use the B, need the B, but it's important to separate the categories so people understand it. All right, so that's a framework. My book is available on Amazon. Told you I got a copy out this morning. It's called Flow. And the subtitle is From Pure and Safe Water to Higher States of Consciousness. So if people go to Amazon and put in Patrick Durkin Flow or Patrick Durkin Water, it's $12 and it'll take you through the whole journey of this and help you understand the ABCs of water filtration. Because I want everybody to be empowered to know what their beliefs are and to know what the questions are, and then to just choose a water treatment system that matches who they are.
So I put the link to Patrick's webpage, not the book, but I'll put that in the replay on the show notes for this, or the party notes. I'll definitely have a link to that so they can check that out. But I put the link to the product page so everybody can see what the actual different types of energizers and then the best water filter ever is on there as well. So again, take a look at it, see what you guys think. Again, like I said, it's definitely an investment, but I love that it lasts forever as long as you take care of it. You don't have to keep replacing parts. So that's awesome. But let's say, like you said, maybe people aren't ready for that. Maybe people don't have the budget for it. How, and this might lead even into these questions together, is okay, you filtered out all the bad stuff, or you filtered out A, B, C, D, R. Well, now it's just, people say dead water, which I can't stand that expression, right? Because I drink distilled water and I remineralize it. And I know that the third part of the framework is the mineralization. So one, how can people, or are there ways for people to do this at home, like improve the structure of their water on a budget, number one, and then two, like even going into the mineralization of it and what your thoughts are about that?
Okay, so we can always improve structure on our own. And I would say that my entire company is a placeholder for humanity remembering its true power. So if you look at across the board, every product that we offer, what we're doing is we're doing our best to communicate, to transmit life force energy to you at this stage of our development as a species. But as soon as we remember how to really sync our consciousness in oneness, love, and joy with the true essence of water, we don't need anything else. So there are people on this planet who are currently praying over and blessing their water, and it's enough. Those people exist. So if you're one of them, please teach us the way, show us the way. And I did a workshop about 6 or 7 years ago where somebody said, I can teach you how to structure water without your device. I was like, let's do it. So I got 10 people together and we spent a weekend learning from this guy how to structure water without the device. And we all felt at the end of the weekend we did it. And when I called each of the participants a week later, I said, are you doing the process? Every one of them said no. And I was like, well, why not? Too much energy. It's really legitimate focus. So you can always do something for free. And we are energetic beings beyond our own capacity to understand. And please, as you're figuring that out, teach me. Teach me to go to realms that I haven't gone to yet, please. In the interim, I'm doing the best I can to move this being forward and to share those experiences. So when it comes down to structuring, there is a component of structuring that simply comes from minerals. So if you take your water in the morning and you bless it, and then you squeeze a half a lemon into it, that is really beneficial. And what's happening is the interaction between that lemon juice and that water is causing that water to be more lively, to be more aligned with its essential characteristics, and then to work better inside your body. So as I've matured in this industry, if we look at the work of Dr. Zach Bush, we hear the idea that 100% of us are dehydrated. And I think I've been on the edge of being hydrated at different stages in my life, but I also can fall away from it really easily. And what it takes is akin to what does it take for any given plant in your home or yard to be perfectly healthy and thriving, right? There's a right relationship to sun and water and nutrients. There's the same for us. And so pretty much drinking every 15 minutes water that is well energized to be in alignment with your values and beliefs and has the mineral content, that's the way to go. So another way to get in this conversation is I've often thought of myself as if I reduced myself into two buckets, what would I have? I have a water bucket and a mineral bucket. That seems to be about all there is. So this is like a water suit hanging on minerals. So I look at old people and I see them shrinking and curling in and coming smaller. I'm like, well, their mineral framework isn't as strong as it used to be. So I want to run an experiment with my life that says, what if I constantly put minerals in? What happens? So we know from the work of the Hydration Foundation that just putting some sea salt into water structures water. So you want free? Pray and put sea salt. Buy a $6 bag of salt and use it over the next 6 months. $1 a month. Like you don't get any more free than that. So that's a great place to start. I like a company called Trace Minerals. We sell a little bit of minerals, but it's better to get them locally and to just constantly be using them to buy from an online company. So sure, you can add them to your order if you're getting them from us. We're happy with what we have. But I just go down to the local store and pick up Trace Minerals, and I squeeze Trace Minerals into almost all water that I'm drinking. I've never been a big fan of distilled. I thought distilled and reverse osmosis were really the same. And Dr. Ed Group's work on the topic has helped me change my perspective this year. So I'm investigating. And when I moved into this new house a week and a half ago, I got a distiller for the first time. And I am currently experimenting with distilled water. And I want to feel it all the way through my tissues. Like I want to know what happens to my consciousness, what happens to my energy levels, and all of that. So I'm doing that experimentation right now. And while I'm doing it, I am doing both drink the distill without adding the trace minerals and doing it with. I think I'll probably end up concluding that with is going to be much better over time. But until I go through the education process, I won't know. And that brings me back to one of my favorite principles that'll help empower people. I call it 3 days on, 3 days off. So if you want to find out what a good water thing is for you, try a type of water for 3 days and then switch to a different type for 3 days and repeat until your body gives you clarity. So at the beginning of this whole journey that ended up with writing a book, I had no idea how to answer these questions. So I just did 3 days on, 3 days off, and then I shared the methodology and people replicated it, and then they told me their stories. And that's how I got a consensus view of what water wisdom is and what it isn't. And so with regard to back to where you started it, I think generally speaking, filling up this mineral content that's holding this water sac up, it's got to be a good idea. Like, I don't see how it could not be. So adding minerals through fruits and vegetables into your water and or products specifically designed to add minerals to the water, got to be good.
Yeah. You'll have to let me know how your experiment goes with the distilled water.
I will. It's a big one for me. There, Dr. Group and Dr. Ely, Dr. Artist, Dr. Schmidt, they've specifically asked me to stock and offer what they consider holy water into the world. And I've added the filter that they like. It's on our website now. It's the Alexa Pure, and it looks a lot like a Berkey, except they don't have the legal problems that Berkey has, which it's good to have an unencumbered company. So that I've added and I'm really comfortable with. It's got great characteristics and great testing, but they also say that you need to distill first. And before I'm going to endorse that, I'm going to really work with it and make sure, and then I'll test it in people, get feedback from the community, and then I'll go public with my conclusions. And I'd love to share that with you.
Oh, this has been great. I know I've asked a ton of questions, but again, I definitely want to open it up. If anybody, again, unmute yourself. If you have any questions that weren't addressed that are, even specifically about maybe what your regimen is, definitely one, if you're live, open up your microphone and geez, a lot of people here. This is awesome. If not, you can leave it in the comments in the replay of it on the page. But while we're here, while we have Patrick here, before he goes surfing, you got him. But no, I'm definitely gonna. Oh, man, I'm gonna order one of the. If there was one you said I should order, which short of the full house one, would you say the portable one would be a good one to start with?
Yeah, so that's the most popular. We sell 9 of those to one of all the others. And really, the portable device, let's think about it for a second. It does everything the other devices do in a more versatile way, and it's not quite as convenient. So, portable device, you take this, you take something like this, you put this under a sink, you turn the water on, and you let it funnel through there. And for the most part, it'll take about 60% water pressure. So it's a pretty good flow rate. It's not slow.
So just regular tap water.
Yeah.
Huh.
Unless you feel you need purity because of confidence or taste or smell. Right? So it just depends on who you are and where you are and what your values and beliefs are. So that is enough. And the portable device can be used for every function. So let's say I want to take a bath. Just fill the tub up. I'm going to go like a little boy. And I dip this in the water and I scoop it and I let the water come out the bottom. And I just do that a few times and it structures the whole tub. Or, one of our stories from one of our clients is she was swimming in a public pool, like one of those Olympic-sized public pools. And she would go and the chlorine would burn her eyes, and she was always affected by it. And she started taking her structured water device, and she would go in the pool and just go like this and structure the water. And she found the chlorine didn't bother her after doing that. She was stunned. She's like, it can't be possible, but I'm not impacted. And so you can structure any and all water using the portable. But then if you're living in a home and you own your home and you got a stable situation, you're not moving a lot, or you have more money and you want convenience, then you can buy the under sink device. And now when you turn your faucet on, it just happens without the handheld thing. Makes it a little easier to do everything with structured water. Or if you own the home, you put the whole house device on your water main pipe. And then every time water moves in your home, that happens. The shower, if somebody's really on a budget and they want to get everything and they don't mind a little inconvenience, then you buy only a shower device. You put it on your shower, you bathe in that, and you fill your water container from your shower every day. That's how I started. I know this because I didn't want to invest. I didn't want structured water to work in my life because I had no replacement parts and no maintenance. So I got one device and that's how I tested. So that's the best. You can cover yourself the most in it and spend the least money. So the portable device is definitely that one. And if you're in a more stable situation, you have more money, go ahead and get more convenience with the others, but you don't need the others. And everybody needs a portable no matter what. Because let's say you started and you bought a whole house device, then you get used to living in living water, and then you leave home and you don't have it, it doesn't work. So then you need a portable device to take with you. So you can never go wrong buying the portable, and you can get the others if it feels right to you.
I was going to ask you about the shower unit because I went and looked at that too, and that's a great little hack, if you will, is get one for the shower and fill up your water from there. Yeah,
Right on. Well, we want to make people's lives better. Like
right,
this, I had
exactly.
a business that was all about money, and I know what that feels like. And this business is all about how do we figure this area of life out and be profoundly supported and stimulated by our choices. That's the point. So shower device is a great solution.
Yeah. Oh, this has been so good, even better than what I was hoping. It was definitely worth the wait, Patrick. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and educating us and just inspiring us, inspiring me especially on just being one, being one and in harmony with the water. And again, the more my guests and my BYOG experts get into the whole spirituality and energy, I love it even more. And I think my community does too. So I'm glad that you imparted a lot of that today.
It's my pleasure. I really love your be your own guarantee. Like that's a line that really works for me, a way of thinking. And we're just so deeply aligned on that. Like this is a world with a lot of misleading information, a lot of conflicted information. And when a person turns their life over to immersion in living water, then I would say they have the best direct connection to their origin, their source, the truth of who they are. And that person is the most empowered version of self. And that person can make decisions, not just about water, but nutrition, energetics, and all the different things in this world that ultimately lead back to health. So everything's about vibration and frequency. And if you can have living water inside you, then you can match the vibration of that highest version of yourself. And I think if billions of us do that, then we change the way this world works. And that's what I'm after.
Ah, so good. And, like Patrick said earlier, he's very easy to get a hold of. He loves questions. So definitely you can, what's the best place they can maybe reach out to you? Just go to the website, would you say?
Sure. Sometimes the contact us form works and sometimes it doesn't. Like it's a lot to be a small company and make everything work like Amazon. Like it's like impossible. So just email support at thewellnessenterprise.com, support@thewellnessenterprise.com, and we'd be delighted to answer your questions. We always like to know where you found us from, just so we could be aware of when information inspired you and what channels people are coming to, because then we know what articles to publish and what resources to create. Tell us where you're coming from, and tell us what's on your mind. And I would say at this point, a dozen years in, there's no question that hasn't been asked, and we'd be delighted to give you our answer, and hopefully it helps you get clear.
Uh, Thank you so much for this, Patrick. Thanks for everybody for being here. I'll have the replay link up probably tomorrow. Yeah, not probably, but definitely tomorrow. And I'll send that out to everybody so then they can rewatch it again and again or watch it for the first time. But man, thanks so much again. And Patrick, we'll definitely be talking.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, Dr. Brian, for having me.